Officially, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Corporate College's webinar series, Live with the Experts. Again, each of these sessions is really geared towards you and providing relevant information, tools, topics, everything you need to really set you up for success. Adjusting to this new norm seems to be a daily occurrence now, and we're all shifting to a new reality of remote working and learning and living. But here at Tri-C, we're committed to serving you in this time of rapid change by providing actionable resources, things to help you and to help your team not only succeed, but thrive wherever you're located, whether you're still at the work site or working remotely. Our webinar series is just one of Corporate College's newest resources to prepare the workforce to overcome challenges and achieve both personal and business goals. The series is comprised of 4 themes, with today's session related to working. We have other topics that focus on virtual leadership, navigating a transition, and even personal health and well-being. And as many of you have seen and know, Corporate College has a very distinguished and talented team of facilitators and subject matter experts. Today, I'm very pleased and super excited to present to you our facilitation specialist, Lisa Criley-Miles. Lisa has more than 15 years of experience as a productivity coach, consultant, and trainer with a variety of public and private organizations. Lisa specializes in helping business owners and organizations achieve excellence through the design of implementation of systems, structures, and strategies that help them accomplish more with fewer resources. She has extensive experience in understanding how learning styles, personality characteristics, and time preferences really affect work methods. Lisa's areas of expertise include effectively delegating, managing and maximizing biological prime time, and creating an easy to implement structure to increase efficiency. Companies that have benefited from her expertise include Indeed, the Scott's Miracle-Gro Company, National Inventors Hall of Fame, and many, many more. So with that, I'm very pleased to introduce to you Lisa Criley-Miles. Welcome, Lisa. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, and thank you so much for the kind introduction. And a warning to everyone on today, you are going to work harder than I am. So get ready to type in the chat. I want to make sure that I can deliver content based on who you are and what you're doing. So let's start with, are you an employee? Are you a business owner with no employees? Are you a business owner or manager overseeing employees? So type this in the chat. You're just going to type in the numbers 1, 2, 3, or 4 based on who you are so that I can make sure that I am delivering content directly to you. Thank you guys for doing this. Okay, so if you're wondering who else is on the call with you right now, it is mostly employees or employees with no business owners, with a couple business owners or managers overseeing 1 to 10 employees. So I will work to making sure that I put my comments mostly and my ideas mostly to that audience. Know that I will also, those of you who are typing in 3s and 4s right now, I will add a couple things in for you specifically on how you may be able to take these skills today to manage your employees. One more question to help me get an idea of where you are. And in this time, you will either type in an A, B, C, or D. I don't want to know what's going on. Are you typically someone who accomplishes most everything, but now that you're working remotely, you're accomplishing less? Or are you someone who typically struggles with getting everything done and working remotely has just intensified this? Or are you someone who actually are getting more done now that you're working remotely? And if I missed an option, feel free to type in D and give me an explanation. All right. Lots of A's and C's. Mostly A's and C's. Fantastic. And I'm getting a couple D. Ooh, thank you. I'm getting a couple D's that are, I'm getting everything done. However, there seems to be less to do, which is, thank you. All right. So here we go. Where we are right now, there is an opportunity and there is an inherent challenge. We know this. If you've been listening to any of these webinars that Tracy and Corporate College have been putting on, you get both of these pieces. There's the opportunity to redesign, change things up that you may not have known before, or you may not have wanted to take the time to think through before, and you are now forced, you're in that place where you have to start to figure out how you're going to do things differently. There's also the challenge, and there's so many challenges that are inherent with changing the way you work, changing how you work, changing where you work. And what I would like to know right now is, what is the biggest challenge you're facing right now with working remotely? We will address the top 3 challenges my clients face. With working remotely, we will also pull up yours throughout. I will make sure that I pull some of your challenges out also. And I also want to take the time throughout our 45, 50 minutes together to make sure that we're looking for the opportunities. What I'm seeing here is household distractions, not having people to bounce ideas off of, stress and procrastination, organizing my day, getting an answer, communication with my direct supervisor, proving my worth with less work. So many things. I'm trying to keep up. I'm feeling like every minute of my day needs to be accounted for, when this was not the case when you're in the office, which makes it very stressful to take regular breaks. Connecting people as possible, homeschooling, right? Because now all of a sudden there's there's definitely more responsibilities going on, more meetings all day long. I will share with you as I'm getting some more people typing in. I had 6 Zoom calls yesterday. I would never take 6 meetings in one day, ever. And I had 6 Zoom calls yesterday. So definitely it is a sign of what's happening. All right, so here's what you're gonna learn today. And one thing to make sure that I don't miss anything, I wanna make sure that I answer your questions. I will be asking you to type in the chat a lot. If you have a question that comes up as we're going along, if you could do an all caps for me question, and then your piece, that'll help me see it outside of the regular stuff I'm asking you to give me, because I want to make sure that I can catch those. And Geraldine has been so awesome to agree to monitor that for me to make sure none of the questions slip through the cracks. So just one more time, question, put it in all caps for me, and it'll help me pull it out from what's the other stuff that we're doing in there. So here's what you're going to learn today. 3 steps to dominate your day while working remotely: direct communication, distraction-free time, and defining your peak. What's really great about the 3 steps I'll share with you today is they are going to work regardless of where you're actually working. So when this normal changes to another normal, which changes to another normal, these strategies will still work. So here's our first one, and it's direct communication. What you're going to find is that many of the things that you just typed into the chat, this strategy is going to help address. In fact, of the 3 strategies I'm going to teach you today, I think they're going to cover almost everything that you've typed in. So let's talk about direct communication. It's about having a conversation about what's going on and about what's expected. So I'm going to tell you a really quick story. One of my clients' daughter works for a news station, and her hours were 2:30 in the morning till 11 in the morning. And when, pre-March, she'd go in, she'd work from 2:30 to 11, and then she was done. And she didn't get emails when she was home. No one called her. Like, she went in, she worked, she left. That was it. Now she's getting emails at midnight. She's getting emails at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She's getting emails all the time, and she's really struggling. She's not sleeping well. Like, you know how that story goes. She feels like she's constantly on call. And so her and I had a conversation, and I said, well, what is the expectation? You used to work 2:30 to 11. What do you work now? She's like, well, I work all the time. I said, no, 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 no. What's the expectation? And so she went back and had that conversation with her boss and found out that really the expectation really was still 2:30 to 11. It was just that other people were communicating with her outside of those times based on their schedules. So one of the things that you want to have a conversation around is, what are those expectations? What are your office hours? Is this a butts in seat piece where no matter what's going on, they're expecting you at your desk from 9 to 5 or whatever that piece may be? Or is this more of a outcomes is what's expected? You have your work, you need to get it done, no matter how that happens. Many times we assume that because we get an email, we have to respond right away. That's not always the case. You just need to have that expectation. You need to have a clear conversation around that expectation. The other piece to think about here when we're talking about direct communication is how. Like, how are you expected to do your work, or what support can you expect to receive, or what support is possible? So I'm gonna have one of my clients owns a mental health facility, and her husband, she has like 40 employees, and her husband works for an international company. Their expectation for her husband is that he was butts in seats 9 to 5. They have 2 kids, one in kindergarten, one in first grade. So she's trying to run her business. He needs to be at his desk, and somehow they're also supposed to homeschool their kids. So he went back to his boss and said, look, I get that the expectation is 9 to 5. I am here. I need to adjust. I need to change that. I need to be able to take at least 2 hours away in the middle of the day so that my wife can do some of the things she needs to do to run her business. And they had that communication. So it's about saying, here's what I need, and listening to what it is that they need. Because it could be that you're on the same page and you just don't know it because you haven't talked yet. So now that support piece, how is it that you're going to work? A very dear friend of mine is struggling right now because she's used to being able to bounce ideas off of people in the office, or popping her head into her boss's room and saying, hey, what do you think about this? And then popping back out again. It's not happening the same way for her via email. And so you want to start to think about, what kind of support do you need? And for those of you who typed in, 3s and 4s, what kind of support do your employees need? What I want to do is we're going to talk a little bit using everything DISC. For those of you who are familiar with the DISC concept, I would imagine, love it as much as I do. And I can share with you that if you want to know more about this, Susan Aldrich did a webinar back on the 8th that talks about using DISC to lead. So it talks about it from the perception of how can you support your employees using the DISC model. It's a great webinar. So I would encourage you to go back and look at that. We're going to look at this a little bit differently, and we're going to look at it from the perception of, what do you need as the person when it comes to DISC? And we're going to look at it as the priority. So the words written around the circle. So if you are unfamiliar with DISC, here's a very quick and dirty way to put yourself somewhere in one of the 4 quadrants. The top half of the DISC circle is typically, people fall there if they are typically fast, meaning they take action fast, sometimes they talk fast, but they tend to move through processes and thoughts quickly. The bottom half of the circle are for people who tend to take a slower time and are more contemplative before making decisions, before taking action. So if you are unfamiliar with DISC, or if you're trying to think about an employee that you may have when you're thinking about DISC, I want you first to think about how quickly do they take action? Is it fast or is it slower? And put them in the top or bottom part of this, of the circle. Then the second place that you're going to move is to the, if we're looking on the right, these people tend to be more warm and accepting. On the left, they tend to be more questioning and skeptical. So again, think about yourself if you're unfamiliar with DISC and you don't know your style. Think about some of the people that you may be managing or on your team. Do they tend to be more warm and accepting, or do they tend to be more questioning and skeptical? Then all you're doing is taking those two answers. You were either on the top part or you were on the bottom. If you're on the top, you either move to the right or to the left. If you're on the bottom, you either move to the right or to the left. Very quick and dirty way to do DISC. I highly recommend taking an assessment if you have not done so. I highly recommend those for your team also. However, that being said, we want to move into the DISC place right now of looking at the priorities. What is it that you need? So let me give you an example. I have, you probably have, or let me back up again. We all have parts of everything in us, and you may have a number of priorities and they may not be right next to each other on the circle. You may have 3 on one side and 1 or 2 across, and that's perfectly fine. One of my dear friends is an HR professional, and one of her top priorities is collaboration. And she is working remotely, as many of us still are. And she is devastated, and I don't think I'm overselling it, when her boss pulls back and doesn't hold one of their regularly scheduled staff meetings. She's also sad when people come to the staff meeting and they don't have their video cameras on. She likes people, she likes to see people, she likes to collaborate with people. That is one of her top priorities. And so when we're talking about direct communication and how are you working and what do you need to ask for, one of those things she needs to say to her direct supervisor, hey, it really helps me when I can see people. It really helps me when we have time together in a meeting. It really helps me when they have a Slack channel and she'll post out in the Slack channel, how is everyone? And then no one answers. And that's very hard for her. And so when we talk about how can you work effectively at home, there's that direct communication piece of understanding what are the boundaries, the parameters, when are you supposed to be working and how, but there's also that direct communication piece of, hey, here's how you can best support me. She really struggles to get quality work done when she cannot speak with people. Another one of my clients is in the organization development space, and one of her top priorities is support, which means that she takes on and says yes to so many people who need help and is working more hours now than ever because she's saying yes to everything that comes in. So one of the pieces that she knows she needs when it comes to support is she needs someone to be able to check in on her periodically about how full is her schedule. What has she agreed to? What can she move off her plate? Because she will just keep taking it all in. And I'll give you one more example. I'll give you mine. Accuracy is one of my top priorities. Most of my work has been done remotely when I'm working. However, when I'm leading, I'm on a board. When I'm leading this board, you're in person. I know that I can get bogged down in the details. Accuracy is important to me. I can get bogged down in the details and lose sight of the big picture. I need to make sure that I have someone who's supporting me by helping me look back at what's the work I'm doing. How does that fit into the big picture? So now the question that I have for you is I want you to look at the priorities around the circle and I want you to think about what's one of your top priorities and what support when it comes to direct communication, what support can you ask for to help you with that, be able to live with that priority, live in that priority, to be able to be the best that you can be. So like I know with accuracy, I need someone to help me make sure that I'm tying it back to the big picture. Someone whose priority is enthusiasm, right now working remotely, they may need opportunities to jump and shout and and share. So what about you? What are some of your priorities and how can you, what support do you need to be able to live in that the best and the easiest? I'll give you a moment to think. So I have results. Okay. I feel like an island. All right. So the person who just typed in, I feel like an island, my guess is one of your priorities is collaboration, possibly enthusiasm, possibly support. There we go. And yeah. And so then what do you need so that you feel less like you're on an island? Enthusiasm, team moments to share wins. So someone whose priority is probably results, they need feedback from employees about what's going well and what they're struggling with. One of the things that happens, I think, when we're not all working remotely is there's that, especially for someone who wants results, they tend to, someone whose priorities results will, they're good starters and good finishers, but the middle sometimes is missing. And so they don't always connect the dots on how to get from their vision to the end. And a lot of those dots get connected kind of accidentally sometimes when we're all in the same place. Because a conversation will lead to another conversation, will lead to the fact that, oh, there's a missing piece. And that's missing right now. So a lot of people who have results as a priority will find that they need some people to help them think through the middle. Collaboration and accuracy, use a manager who's more open to change. So I will say if someone if someone on your team values stability or you value stability, right now you need someone or you need support in looking at the fact that there's not a lot of stability. How can you build in a tiny bit? And so if you have a manager who you're hoping would be more open to change, part of that is probably because they value stability. And so it's that opportunity to talk about how, it's you asking for support versus making someone support you. So it's you're asking for, when you look at value change, how can you get them on the same page with you? Interaction. So many, if you're on the right half of this, if you feel like your action, enthusiasm, collaboration, support, stability, like on the right half of that, you are craving interaction so much. Reaching out to your coworkers, alternating weeks in the office. Oh, so half of you guys, you almost never see half the people. And so again, if you're on that right side, part of that is now you want to start figuring out ways that you can connect with the other half. What does that look like? It could be a happy hour. It could, there's a lot of things, but it's about asking for your support. That's the point here about direct communication. You need to reach out and you need to ask. So what's your opportunity? So you have an action guide. On the front part of that action guide, there's direct communication, a place for you to think through, okay, what are some things I need to think about I can take action on? Where's your opportunity? Pop that on your action guide right now. Again, the action guide was emailed to you about 7 o'clock this morning that you could print out. Because let's talk about the fact that there are opportunities here. One, there's opportunities to figure out direct communication. What are the expectations for what you're doing? But there's also opportunities maybe to create some boundaries that maybe you didn't have when you were not working remotely that you can start to put into place now. One of my clients is a financial advisor, and her in-person meetings would always go longer than what she had scheduled for them. Now that she's meeting on Zoom, or not Zoom, they're using a different platform, but now that they're meeting through a virtual platform, she's ending her stuff on time. She was able to set boundaries around the timing that she was unable to do in person, that once she goes back to taking in-person meetings, that'll carry over. What about communication with your team? Here's an opportunity for you to think about, you know, it used to be that maybe meetings were haphazard. Now's the opportunity to put some structure around them, get everyone on for shorter meetings. Opportunities, adding more regular communication with your team. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be long, but it probably does need to be regular. All right, so think through the opportunities. This is your opportunity to think through your opportunities. All right, our second one, distraction-free time. 8 hours in a day, if you can work 3 hours uninterrupted, you can pretty much rule the world. It's hard to maintain high energy focus for more than 3 hours in an 8 hour period. The problem is, in general, and even more so now I'm working remotely with so many distractions happening, that it is really hard to maintain focus. If ever there were a stat to scare you into trying to create distraction-free time, it's this statistic right here. Study completed in the University of California, Irvine, tells us that every time you're interrupted, it takes 23 minutes and 15 seconds to regain your thought process. So, like if you were in the zone, deep in thought, and someone pops their head in, it's 23 minutes and 15 seconds. Think about how many times you're interrupted. The other day, my husband was home and he opened my office door to tell me about something that was on TV. And I just looked at him and I was like, 23 minutes. You just cost me 23 minutes. He was unaware of the stat. He now is very aware of the stat. But here's the deal. Distractions are real. You want to figure out how can you work distraction free. And so let's talk about what are some of your top distractions. Pop them in the chat. What are some of your top distractions? I think earlier, probably kids. Put them in the chat. Top distractions. Maybe it's email, maybe it's people, maybe it's pets. I have husband and dogs, freedom to roam. I know the refrigerator, children, the news, pets. My husband who likes to chat. Maybe we can share. We can put our husbands together. Um, Pets, daughter, husband. All right. I will set a meetup. All the husbands can go somewhere outside, socially distance, and talk. After all those meetings, my focus starts to dwindle. Ooh, too quiet. I'm home alone. Email, dogs. I know, those darn husbands. Neighbors, loud music, TikTok, kids, pets, because they're the same space that they're not used to having them in the news. Getting in my own way, my headspace gets crowded. Okay, so I read all these out loud and I didn't take notes, so let me jot a couple of things down so we can hit some. So what we have is people as a distraction. We also have your head. And we also have, so let's start first with people. We're going to move to head, so by head, like thoughts in your head. But let's start with people. Unfortunately, fortunately, depending how you look at it, like we can't take our people and stick them in a closet and close the door and make them stay there until we're ready for them to come back out and interact with us. Remember, on that DISC scale, I'm a C. I have been working remotely for years. I enjoy working remotely. I really enjoyed working remotely when I was alone. It is tougher now. Right now, those of you who have mastered or have almost mastered or have tried something that's worked, put it in the chat. What are some things you've done to help lessen the distractions from people in your workspace? Pop it in the chat. And I'm going to add to our list coming in right now is things urgent that really aren't urgent. I'm going to try to add that one too. All right, so we have sign on the door. We have lock on the door. What are other ways? Ignore them politely. Close the door. Now, what I want you to put in the chat, let them know how much time I need to focus so they'll wait. Close and lock the door. I love closing the door. Establish spaces and break times. Give a condition about what a true emergency is. We used to have, when I was growing up, the B rule. It was either bloody or broken bones. If those two things weren't, if it wasn't one of those two, it was not an emergency. So either blood or broken bones. Set boundaries, no doors, set rules about interruptions, respond only when convenient, communicate time needed without interruption. All right, so one of the things what we're seeing here, we're seeing close the door. And we're also seeing maybe lock it. But the direct communication, weird how that's coming back into play again, right? With the distractions, direct communication. It is much easier here at my house if I take the time to say, I do it twice. I do it at night and then in the morning. And I'll say, here's what my day looks like tomorrow. And I'll kind of list out my stuff. He is a big picture person, not a detailed person. So he glossed over me after like the second sentence. And then I say, so what that means to you is I need to be uninterrupted during this time. And there are also times where I'll say, I need to make sure the dog bark during this time. Meaning, because many times what will happen is someone here will leave and then they'll come back right in the middle and the dog will go crazy. So very clear communication. This is what I need. It is not realistic to think I'm going to get an 8-hour day uninterrupted. If I can pull 3 hours, it's awesome. So direct communication, closing the door, putting a sign. So if we're talking about smaller kids, depending on the age, it can just be I had a client who used to use a red and a green sign. Red means stop, green means come in. It could also just be, these are the only reasons you can interrupt me. Break times when they are allowed to distribute. One of the reasons, and so remember, the tips and strategies I'm giving you now, these work when people are back together again. One of the reasons people interrupt you is because they don't know when they're going to get you again. And so it's immediate. They come the second something pops in their head or the minute they see you. If you can say, I'm available between these times, people will usually hold their questions until then. Yeah, here's one that I need to remember. Establish break times that others are allowed to disturb you. If you find a common distraction happening regularly, find a solution to the pattern. Don't just get upset. Take your dog out before you get started, things like that. Absolutely start looking for patterns. And then have that conversation. A lot of what will help you work more effectively from home or remotely is that you take 5 minutes to plan and think. And I don't say 5 minutes flippantly, like really a lot of times that's all it takes is 5 minutes. What are the distractions I'm happening? What can I do about them? All right, so we are going to move off of the people coming in to disturb you piece. And we're going to move into the it's your head disturbing you piece. So there were a couple comments in here about I'm trying to find them really quick. Antsy sitting alone, getting in my own way, my headspace gets crowded. Things like those ideas. You start working on one thing, your brain goes 50 other directions. So those of you who have mastered or have at least tried something that has had some success, pop it into the chat for me, please. What are some things you do to help you when your head, you are your own biggest distraction? What are some of the things that you do? So probably I would think TikTok falls here because you are out looking at TikTok versus TikTok coming to you. What are some of your things? Oh, quick break. You guys are quick on this one. All right. Take a quick break, take a short walk, go for a walk, take a walk. You guys are way in the walk thing right now. I'm loving this. Write down the things in your head. Okay, good. I'm going to come back to that one. Go downstairs for more coffee, leave the room, but only for 5 minutes. Stop watching the daily updates. Yes. Walking in is a huge help. Yes, 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 yes. So here's a couple ideas for when you want to quiet your mind. One, parking lot. Taking all those thoughts out of your head, sticking them on a piece of paper that you can then go back to later. This happens a lot when I see, like I'll open a browser and then that'll lead me to another browser, which will lead me to another browser. And then I'm like 8 browsers away from where I started. Instead of opening that next browser, jot it down on a piece of paper. Or I'll start working on a project and then I'll get an idea for another project and I'll want to go work on that. Jot it down on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be fancy. Like people are like, oh, what does your parking lot look like? I'm like, it looks like the back of a scrap piece of paper. Just an aside, your parking lot is not your next to-do list. It's just a place to get the stuff out of your head, dump it onto a piece of paper, and then figure out what to do with it after you're done with what you're working on. Because if you're in the zone and an idea pops in your head and you move away, it's 23 minutes and 15 seconds before you get back in the zone. So just jot those thoughts down and then move on. The other thing, to go back to the walk piece, a break. When your brain, typically when your brain starts going 50 directions, you need a mental break. You need to be able to take, move away. The characteristics of a good break. So this is coming out of Daniel Pink's research, but the characteristics of a good break are that you are completely disconnected from work. So a break is not checking your email on your phone instead of your computer. Like, that is not a break. Going outside, moving, and being social. So when I think about what a really good break for me is, it's taking about a 20-minute walk on the phone with a friend. So I'm taking a break, I'm outside, I'm moving, and it's social. And when I'm talking with a friend, we are not talking business. We're talking anything but business for 20 minutes. So when your brain starts to go all over the place, think about a walk, meditate, anything to take yourself away from where you are for a short time. Parking, yes. Yes, Sarah. Parking lots are super helpful at 2 a.m. If you wake up at 2 a.m. because you think something fell through the cracks, jot it on a piece of paper, go back to bed. Those are great ideas for breaks, great ideas for things that are going on in your head. So, with that being said, what I wanted to, if I did not answer your specific distraction question or your specific direct communication question about how to work, where to work, that type of stuff, make sure that you pop it in the chat for me. Just put question in all caps, because we're going to move on to our third slide now. And there we go. This is about the action piece. What's your opportunity here? So when you look on your action guide, you had that on the back page, you have distractions, solutions. This was your place to start pulling in, okay, what are some of your distractions? What are some ideas to overcome those? And now, what's your opportunity? What's something you can do? So pop in the chat for me. What is something that you can do? And really quick, I am getting social media as another distraction. So really quick, I'll tell you my quick and dirty strategy on social media while you guys are letting me know what's an action that you could take right now around distractions. Social media, tell yourself when you're going to get on and set a timer. I know that when my brain starts to stretch to make a conclusion, so this happens a lot when I'm trying to write marketing copy, not my strength. As soon as I start to stretch to make a conclusion, I want to go to Facebook. The answer is not there in case anyone's wondering. However, that's my default because I'm trying to work too hard. So I make sure that I keep it closed out, and I tell myself you're allowed to check social media, or I like to check to see what the latest news is for the Cleveland Indians. So I have an app on my phone for that. I only allow myself to do that at certain times during the day so that it doesn't become a crutch. So some things we're going to do: set up a weekly 30-minute check-in with my boss, set a break time to get up and move. Another thing with timers and setting break times, I set my timer on the other side of the room, just as just a bonus tip for you. It's easy for me to snooze the timer if it's sitting next to me. It's a lot harder for me to snooze the timer if I have to get up and go get it. So that forces me out of my chair, which then makes it easier for me to take a break. We want to look for strategies that already, if it requires more discipline or it requires more willpower, it's not a strategy that's sustainable. So you want to find strategies that you want to create strategies that are easy for you to get into. Sometimes allow the distractions. Don't punish yourself. It only makes it worse. Again, remember, 8-hour day. If you're pulling 3 hours of uninterrupted time, this is great. So sometimes the distractions, you'll need them. We're going to actually get into that as my third point. Yeah, move your phone out of sight as it's a distraction. Put on airplane mode, whatever. I always just turn it over. I take my phone and turn it over. I can't see it. One-on-one meetings with team members, or aiding and fighting distractions. Yep, Pomodoro method, or your version of it. Thank you, Michelle. Then you know that the pause is coming. So like, give yourself, I'll work for 20 minutes, I'll work for 45 minutes, I'll work for whatever, and then I'll take a break, I'll move, I'll do this. Fantastic, great ideas. Now, strategy number 3. Here's what's awesome about this strategy. My favorite of everything we've been talking about. I already shared how much I love discs, so you can only imagine how much of my favorite this one is. When you master or master-ish or make progress on the first two, this third one, game changer. About biological prime time. If what I'm sharing with you piques your interest and you want to geek out on it a bit, by all means, Daniel Pink's book, When, or Chris Bailey's book, The Productivity Project, both are really good places to get more information on this. There are others, but these are two of my favorite. So here is, in general, the very quick and dirty version of biological prime time. Your energy and attention goes in a sine wave. There are peaks to your biological prime time where your energy is highest and it's easiest for you to focus. And there are valleys to your biological prime time where it is, if I gave you $1 million, you still would have a hard time focusing. You want to master your peak time with activities that need your highest focus and your most energy. You want to do them in your peak time. So I will often ask clients, when is your best time to work, or when do you find that you work the easiest? And what I'll hear many times from them is early in the morning because no one else is up. That's not what we're looking for here. I mean, yay, that's great. That's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for when is the best time for you to work, and then to make that time as distraction free as possible. So I want you to think about, when do you find it's easiest to get into and stay in those tough tasks? For some people, it's in the morning. Other people, it's after lunch. Some people, it's the middle of the night. Like, where's your place? And then you want to plan your day around that. So first, put in the chat for me, how many of you know when it is easiest, or let me do this both ways. Type in yes if you do, type in no if you don't, around knowing when you have a peak time, when you know it's the time that you have the most energy and the most ability to focus. So yes if you do, no if you don't. I'm getting a lot of yeses here. A couple no's. So for the no yeses, congratulations. For the no's, here are some things that you can do. Over the course of a week, take a look at when you sometimes look at either way. When are you finding it tough to get into a task? Try moving that task to a different time of day and see if it becomes easier. Or when do you find it easy to do certain things and try to do those same types of things in that time slot more consistently? And that's going to help you start to figure out where your peak is or where your valley is, or both. Remember, it's a sine curve, so you're getting peaks and valleys. One of the things to remember is that you will have more than one peak and more than one valley, and that's okay. Procrastination is a really big clue that you're doing a task in the wrong time, or in the, I shouldn't say wrong time, there's no right or wrong. You're doing a task in a time that's is not best suited for it. So if you find yourself procrastinating something a lot, move it to a different time of day and see if that makes it easier. There are many reasons why you may be procrastinating. This is one that relates to biological prime time. Let's talk about what type of tasks that you can put into the different parts of your day. Your peak time, that is the best time for your analytical tasks. For me, my peak is actually, it is in the morning. I will often share that for whatever reason, I work really great before I've taken a shower, gotten dressed, made myself presentable for people. So my morning peak can stretch a little bit longer if I'm still comfy and in my pajamas. Once I've showered and gotten ready for the day, it definitely decreases. I don't know why that is. If someone knows why, by all means, feel free to let me know. So for you, you want to think about, when's your peak? That's your analytical time. When you come back down and you're in your trough, it's hard to focus. Use this time for social media for a little bit. I'm not saying like spend 5 hours there, but a little bit of social media time when you're in the trough. Admin stuff, answering emails is great here. And then once you're coming back out of the trough and you're coming back up, that's the time for insightful things. That's the time for creative brainstorming, things like that. Brainstorming works when works best, or is more, you're better off. Oh my goodness, sorry. My words are all scrolling together. You will brainstorm more effectively when your attention is a little bit lower, because you want to make connections that are outside the box. That will happen when you're coming out of the lowest part, moving back up towards your peak. So one of the challenges that happens a lot when we plan all day meetings, we'll do brainstorming in the morning on different topics, and then we'll try to implement them in the afternoon and lay out the strategic plans. Well, if the peaks are off and you're brainstorming during someone's analytical peak, it's tough for them. And then if you're trying to lay out timelines in their trough, that's tough. So you want to think about, when do you do it best? And if you're managing people, when do they do it best? Maybe a new meeting isn't a great idea for people. Maybe it is. Figure out when their troughs are. So I have a question here. Is it normal for your peak time in the afternoon instead of more? Everyone's is different. Some have their sine curves are more condensed. I worked with a client whose peak time was 2 a.m. to like 2 to 7 a.m. And he was working a 9 to 5 job. So good news is he has switched careers because it was a struggle for him all the time. His best time to think was the middle of the night. Yes, part of the reason that you have ideas while showering or driving to work is tangentially related to biological prime time. It's also related to the fact that you're not thinking, so your brain is relaxing. It comes back more to the idea, Elaine, of taking a walk. Your brain doesn't have as much to focus on, therefore those ideas are popping in. And if you are showering or driving to work in your lower time, you're going to get more ideas. even than if you're in your peak analytical time. So what I want to know is in the chat, let me know. We're just going to talk about peak right now. What are some things that you want to make sure that you focus in on during your peak time? What are some ideas that you want to do for your peak time? Problem solving, getting assignments completed. Make my to-do list and have the important task highlighted. Focus on those tasks and communicate with your team. Complete tasks that are directly impacting or visible to my boss. Ooh, I like that one. I like them all. I don't have favorites. Strategy, performance, talent management. Focusing on more detailed projects. Oh, yeah, you guys are getting it. This is awesome. Heavy lifting in the morning, light stuff for the afternoon. So there's two ways to look at this. Like, what are you going to do in your peak time? The other way to look at it is, what are you absolutely not going to do in your peak time? Like, you can play with this concept in a variety of different ways. There's a book, I think there's a book or there's this big thing that says, don't do email in the morning. My philosophy is that there is no right or wrong because everyone's different. Your strengths are different, your personalities are different, how you work is different. So it's not about do this or don't do this. It's about finding about where you do things best. For people whose peak time is in the afternoon, processing email in the morning is a really good idea. For people whose peak time is in the morning, processing email in the morning is not a really good idea. So you need to find the pieces that work for you. Focus on times that are you're holding up other groups. Yeah, you can use that time to focus on things that you know people are waiting for. Now let's flip the question. What is it that you want to make sure you do not do during your peak time? So what are the things you want to make sure that you stay away from during your peak time? So I already gave you email. So what are some other things that you will not do during your peak time? Social media, you betcha. Meetings, yes. And so I'm going to talk about, so yes and no on meetings. If the meeting is really analytical and action focused and strategic focused and lots of implementation steps, you definitely want to do that meeting during your peak time. If it is not that, try to move it out of your peak time. So again, this comes back to direct communication. Let your boss know this is a time when I do my best work for the company. Let's do this meeting at a different time. Weekly metric charts and time card reviews. Yeah, like that repetitive stuff. Fantastic. Okay, so you guys are so good at this. Action. Where's your opportunity here? Pop an opportunity into, if you haven't already put something in that you know you want to do, pop an opportunity, please, for me right into this chat. And while you're letting me know your opportunities, here is what, if I did my job well, here's what you learned today. 3 steps to dominate your day. So the first one was direct communication. What are the expectations? And what support do you need in order to reach those expectations? Using DISC, using your thoughts and ideas about how you work best. Distraction-free time. We were able to go over people. We can't put them in a closet and lock them in there, but we can tell them what we need. And thoughts in your head, which included social media. And then the key here is you take that distraction-free time and you build it into where your peak is. So we taught you try to take 3 hours, make it as distraction-free as possible during your peak time. So I want to make sure that I tied that stuff together for you. And then these will work no matter where you're working. When you go back into, if you go back into an office setting, they will work there. These work everywhere. So last thing, and on your action guide, you'll see on the bottom, it says be an action taker. If nothing changes, nothing changes. I enjoy that you were here with me for an hour. So much, so much. I love doing this. This is my passion. And so I'm glad that you were here with me. And if you don't do anything from our time together, you've wasted your time. So you took a time management class or webinar, and if you don't move something forward, you wasted the hour. So right now, what can you do? Nothing changes, nothing changes. What and by when? And I'm going to flip back to the really quick. I had a request for the 2 books. If you are geeking out on biological prime time, here are 2 really good books. So, what will you do differently and by when? Great. I have create list of actions to do during peak, trough, and recovery times, and do a 1-week check on energy and focus throughout the day. Great. What else? What else will you do if nothing changes? Nothing changes. What else? What's one action you're going to take away from today? Be more open about my needs. Create a schedule. Ask the boss for a weekly check-in. Figure out your peak times and move around the schedule. Ooh, thank you. My first by when and by the end of next week. Thank you for adding the by when. Matthew, I appreciate it. All right, so with that, review this information with my team in order to help them determine and learn about themselves and me. Yes. Create less distraction. Direct communication with my boss. Understand my peak time and not beating. Yes, thank you, Kathleen. Don't beat yourself up. We all work differently at different times. And with that being said, back to you, Geraldine.
Wow, wonderful. I think I was taking a lot of notes there, Lisa. I'm like, I can, it's a problem. Time is so precious, and it really can easily be eaten by distractions, change, demands coming from, like you said, at all angles. So, really helping to reevaluate, reestablish expectations, and understand peak times really helps you regain control, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Oh, and by the way, I do have a sign on my door, and it's closed too.
All the doors leading back here are closed right now.
Right, right. So, on behalf of corporate college, everyone at corporate college, and obviously all the folks on today's session, thank you so much, Lisa, for being here this morning. This was extremely helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Great, great. And for everyone, please remember, corporate college is truly here to serve you with these types of essential learnings to help you overcome some of these challenges that we're facing that you maybe have not been exposed to before. And together know that with our fantastic facilitators like Lisa, and combining that with our virtual classroom training or our self-paced online programs, that we can be really a force really for you to help with consultation services, with training, and with coaching too. So when you visit the corporate college website, you're going to find our learnings available in a virtual classroom format, live, just like today's session, but even actually more engaging. So yeah, being able to communicate a little bit differently and more dynamically. And you will find that in our frontline leadership programs, our Lean Six Sigma, even our patient access specialist programs. Today's session has been recorded, so please feel free to re-watch it, absolutely share it with all your friends and colleagues. All you have to do is go to the Corporate College free webinar series page. Within the next couple of days, the link will be there. And you can see Lisa again, which would be awesome. And all you have to do is click on the free webinar series link to find that and scroll down. And you can always stay up to date with us by following us also on social media. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope you have a wonderful holiday weekend. Please stay safe and stay healthy. Thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you.